BRICS is rapidly transforming Africa's economic landscape, yet this crucial story remains largely overlooked, with initiatives aimed at de-dollarization and significant investments. BRICS is poised to reshape trade dynamics and empower African nations. Are you ready to discover the impact of this emerging alliance? A new economic powerhouse. BRICS is rapidly emerging as a significant player in the global economy, particularly through its engagement with African nations. This coalition, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has evolved beyond just a group of emerging economies. It has become a strategic alliance that aims to reshape global trade dynamics and challenge the dominance of Western powers. For many African countries, the traditional reliance on Western partners has often come with strings attached. Think high-interest loans and strict conditions from institutions like the IMF and World Bank. However, BRICS offers an alternative model that emphasizes economic independence and mutual benefit. The emergence of BRICS represents a new economic powerhouse that prioritizes South-South cooperation. By fostering partnerships focused on shared growth and development, BRICS is paving the way for African nations to engage in more equitable trade relationships. This transformation is essential for Africa's economic future, as it seeks to harness its vast resources and potential for sustainable growth. As we look at the current landscape, it's clear that BRICS is not just about economics, it's also about political influence. By positioning itself as a counterbalance to Western dominance, BRICS is gaining traction among African nations eager to assert their sovereignty on the global stage. $800 billion investment strategy. Now let's dive into the $800 billion investment strategy that BRICS has unveiled for Africa. This ambitious plan aims to transform the continent's infrastructure, trade, and manufacturing sectors. With this level of investment, BRICS is positioning itself as a key partner in driving Africa's economic development. So what does this investment mean for Africa? First, it addresses critical infrastructure gaps that have long hindered economic growth across the continent, from roads and railways to energy projects. This influx of capital will facilitate trade and improve connectivity within African nations. Enhanced infrastructure will not only boost local economies, but also attract foreign investment. Consider this. Many African countries struggle with inadequate transport networks that make it difficult to move goods efficiently. With BRICS' investment in infrastructure development, we could see a significant reduction in transportation costs, leading to lower prices for consumers and increased competitiveness for local businesses. Moreover, this investment strategy emphasizes manufacturing as a cornerstone of Africa's economic transformation by supporting local industries and encouraging production within the continent. BRICS is helping African countries reduce their reliance on imports. This shift towards self-sufficiency is vital for creating jobs and fostering innovation. As BRICS invests in Africa, it also opens doors for new trade partnerships. With increased manufacturing capabilities, African nations can export goods to other emerging markets within the BRICS bloc, challenging the status quo. Next is how BRICS is positioning itself as a formidable alternative to traditional Western financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank. This shift is particularly significant for African countries that have long been subject to stringent conditions imposed by these institutions. Many African leaders are frustrated with the limitations of the traditional financial system, often characterized by high interest rates and onerous repayment terms. In contrast, BRICS offers a more flexible approach through its new development bank, which aims to provide funding tailored to the specific needs of developing countries. This alternative financing model allows African nations to pursue projects without being tied down by external pressures or political conditions often associated with Western loans. The new development bank focuses on sustainable development and infrastructure projects that align with Africa's long-term goals. Furthermore, BRICS advocates de-dollarization, promoting trade in local currencies instead of relying solely on the US dollar, expanding influence in Africa. The recent expansion of BRICS to include new member countries from Africa, such as Egypt and Ethiopia, is enhancing the bloc's influence on the continent. This inclusion signifies a recognition of Africa's growing importance in global affairs and provides these nations with a platform to voice their interests. By welcoming new members, BRICS is strengthening its position as a key player in African development. These countries bring unique perspectives and resources that can further enrich the coalition's efforts in promoting economic growth across the continent. For example, Egypt's strategic location as a gateway between Africa and Europe enhances trade opportunities within BRICS. Similarly, Ethiopia's burgeoning economy can contribute significantly to regional integration efforts among member states. The expansion also reflects a broader trend toward regional cooperation, where African nations collaborate more closely with emerging economies rather than relying solely on traditional Western partners. This shift fosters solidarity among developing countries and creates opportunities for joint ventures and investments in critical sectors. Strengthening economic ties. Let's highlight the importance of South-South cooperation in fostering economic partnerships between BRICS nations and African countries. This collaborative approach emphasizes mutual benefit and shared growth among developing economies. BRICS promotes initiatives that encourage knowledge sharing, technology transfer, and capacity building among its members. By working together, these countries can address common challenges such as poverty alleviation, climate change, and infrastructure development. For example, partnerships between China and various African nations have already yielded significant investments in infrastructure projects. Similarly, India's focus on supporting small and medium-sized enterprises in Africa aligns with BRICS' commitment to inclusive growth. This emphasis on South-South cooperation strengthens economic ties and fosters cultural exchange and understanding among member states. As African countries engage more deeply with BRICS partners, they can leverage their collective strengths to create sustainable development pathways that benefit their populations. A new financial landscape. Let's talk about a critical topic: de-dollarization. BRICS is taking significant steps to reduce reliance on the US dollar in international trade, and this shift could have profound implications for African economies. The idea behind de-dollarization is straightforward. By moving away from the US dollar as the primary currency for trade, countries can gain greater financial autonomy and reduce vulnerability to external economic pressures. In recent discussions among BRICS leaders, there has been a strong emphasis on promoting the use of local currencies in trade agreements. This is particularly relevant for African nations that have long been subject to the fluctuations of the dollar. By adopting alternative currencies, African countries can stabilize their economies and create a more resilient financial landscape. For example, Egypt has been actively exploring ways to trade using local currencies with its BRICS partners. This move not only enhances Egypt's economic sovereignty, but also sets a precedent for other African nations to follow suit. Imagine if countries like Nigeria or South Africa could conduct trade without being tied to the dollar. This could lead to reduced costs and increased competitiveness in international markets. BRICS and African stability. Now, let's shift our focus to security challenges within Africa. BRICS is increasingly recognizing its role in addressing these issues, particularly considering recent military coups and regional conflicts that have destabilized various countries across the continent. BRICS member states have expressed a commitment to supporting peace and stability in Africa through diplomatic engagement and collaboration. For example, during recent summits, leaders discussed strategies for enhancing security cooperation among member states while addressing the root causes of conflict. This approach is particularly important given the rise of extremist groups and ongoing civil unrest in several regions. By fostering dialogue and providing support for conflict resolution initiatives, BRICS can play a pivotal role in stabilizing areas affected by violence. Furthermore, BRICS has the potential to leverage its collective influence to advocate for African solutions to African problems. This means empowering local leaders and communities to take charge of their security needs rather than relying solely on external interventions. The BRICS Grain Exchange Initiative. Agriculture is another area where BRICS is making significant strides, specifically through the BRICS Grain Exchange Initiative. This initiative aims to stabilize agricultural markets in Africa and enhance food security across the continent. With many African countries facing food insecurity due to climate change, conflict, and economic instability, this initiative comes at a critical time by creating a platform for grain trading among BRICS nations and African partners. The initiative seeks to improve access to essential food supplies while promoting sustainable agricultural practices. Think of a scenario where countries like South Africa, can export surplus grains to neighboring nations facing shortages. This enhances food security and strengthens regional ties. The grain exchange will facilitate smoother trade flows, reduce reliance on external imports, and encourage local production. By investing in agriculture through initiatives like this one, BRICS is not just addressing immediate food needs, it's also laying the groundwork for long-term economic resilience in Africa. Beyond economics, while much of the conversation around BRICS focuses on economics, it's essential not to overlook the importance of cultural and humanitarian ties between BRICS nations and Africa. These relationships extend beyond mere financial transactions. They foster mutual understanding and collaboration on various fronts. BRICS has been actively promoting cultural exchanges that celebrate shared heritage and values among its members and African nations. Initiatives such as educational programs, cultural festivals, and artistic collaborations help strengthen these ties while building goodwill between people. Moreover, humanitarian efforts are also a key component of BRICS engagement with Africa. By supporting health initiatives, disaster relief efforts, and community development projects, BRICS demonstrates its commitment to improving the quality of life for people across the continent. For example, during health crises like pandemics or natural disasters, BRICS countries have coordinated responses that provide essential aid and resources to affected regions. This collaborative approach not only addresses immediate needs, but also fosters long-term relationships based on trust and solidarity. As these cultural and humanitarian ties grow stronger, they contribute to a more comprehensive partnership that enhances both economic cooperation and social development across Africa. Why this story matters. Finally, let's emphasize why the rise of BRICS in Africa is such an important narrative, one that deserves more attention from global audiences. The potential for BRICS to reshape Africa's role in the global order cannot be overstated. As African nations increasingly turn towards BRICS for economic partnerships, they are asserting their agency on the world stage. This shift represents a significant departure from traditional Western dominance in global affairs that could redefine power dynamics for years. The implications of this transformation are vast, with enhanced cooperation among emerging economies like those within BRICS. Africa stands poised to become a more influential player in international trade negotiations and geopolitical discussions. This newfound strength allows African nations to advocate for their interests more effectively while challenging outdated narratives about their capabilities. What are your thoughts on how this coalition is reshaping Africa's economic landscape? Do you believe that de-dollarization and increased investment will truly empower African nations? Drop your comments below with your insights and opinions. If you find this video informative, don't forget to like it and subscribe to more content. Thanks for watching.